Craig, I want you to stand in the circle of truth and admit to the room. Are you a faithful or are you a traitor? Craig, you're not talking. Craig, I can only keep up this Scottish accent for so long, and it's really not holding up.
Craig doesn't say much.
G'day.
He tends to just say, "Now recording," and then leave the room.
Deuces.
Which is a real shame. I think he could contribute some real insight to our podcast, I'm sure. Yes. How are you?
Oh, yeah, she's all right. It's been a week.
It has?
Yeah. Just glad that it's the long weekend now.
Yes. Of course.
3 days instead of just the 2.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
Nice
Yes.
time.
I don't think a regular weekend is quite sufficient. I think I've talked about this meme before. It's like weekends are a scam. You spend one day exhausted and the next day anxious as all hell.
Is it like Finland or a country like that does
the 4-day work week?
weeks?
I think it's a Scandinavian country of some description.
Yeah,
I couldn't tell you which one.
I think they're onto something.
You just got to figure out who's going to make it happen. My one thing is I went into the Disney Channel and I sat down with the president of the Disney Channel and I said, I want to make history. And that's what this is.
Let's be real. No one in this political climate is going to make a 4-day work week happen.
Yeah, no. Not going to happen.
Where are we at currently? Elon Musk has outed himself as a naughty German.
Yeah.
And yeah, all sorts of stuff is happening over there in that part of the world.
And it's a little bit depressing, but you know.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Yeah.
I feel like it's just, it's just got to sit and wait it out at the moment, which is really a horrible thing to have to think about. But yeah, here we are.
Anyway, last week was the sad episode, so we should.
It was, yes.
No more sad episodes.
Yeah. Although you did make a little bit of a heartfelt video today.
I did.
Yes.
It was actually not meant to come out until next week, but I've reshuffled my schedule a little bit because I was at the Gold Coast and didn't get a whole lot of time to edit. So yeah, I spoke a little bit more in detail about what happened at the end of last year and where I'm going from here.
Mm-hmm.
And you should check that out on my channel if you're interested. But yeah, it's a new chapter for Maloney's Coasters.
How are you feeling about it?
I'm optimistic. I think that there's still a lot of potential in what I can do while living in Australia. I would have really enjoyed the adventure of living in all these different countries and traveling long term, but I think everything happens for a reason. So I'm back and I'm going to make it work, and I'm not letting it spoil the Coaster Odyssey dream, but we make it happen.
Yeah. Just got to take care of business, take care of yourself, and
of course. There's no point suffering to make the dream happen. It's
nothing wrong with being ambitious. You can eat the world's biggest burger, but you got to maybe do it in a couple more bites.
Exactly. And I've already got my my next Coaster Odyssey trip planned out.
Okay.
Dates to be confirmed, but Um, it will be continuing once I'm settled and ready. Um, I've got to find myself a new place. I've already started a job. I've already got a car. I've got to get myself a new place to live, and I'm also looking at potentially I might have a new companion soon as well.
Oh,
I'm looking at getting a pupperino.
oh, ah. Are you looking at any particular type of pupperino, or you
Um,
just
so I'm not going to be fussy. I am going to adopt,
yep,
but I have always wanted my next dog because so I had a corgi and I absolutely loved my corgi, but I'm gonna wait before I go back. I will have a corgi again at some point in my life, but I'm gonna wait and
sure,
let her memory last for a while.
okay.
The other type of dog that I've always thought is just the cutest thing in the world is a dachshund, and
Is it
um,
Dachshund or Dachshund?
I don't know. I hear people call it dash hound all the time, and I know that's wrong.
Yeah,
So I kind of go halfway in between,
sure.
uh, just to, I'm probably also wrong, but I'm less wrong than most people. Um,
I don't know if it's one of those things. You know how like people get, you know how people get sort of super like bijiggity or tall poppy syndrome if you try and pronounce things that are a foreign word correctly, like
yeah,
croissant versus croissant.
yeah, yeah.
I'm looking at you, Taylor Bybee. Um,
Ugh. Yeah. I
uh,
don't think you should get upset at people for pronouncing it properly. I think my dachshund thing is like I'm trying to make sure that people know what I'm talking about while also not being as stereotypically ignorant white man as a lot of people are.
well,
Um,
to be fair, I think it's a German word, so I think
I think
it's
probably
white on white.
German-wise, yeah, it probably is Dachshund or something like that. My German pronunciation is pretty terrible, but Dachshund or something sounds at least the way it spells it makes the most sense.
Mm,
But yeah, that dog, the
yeah,
little sausage
sausage
guy.
dog.
Um, yeah, I've always wanted one, and recently, there are no less than 4 of them that are currently in local towns,
That seems like a
right now,
lot,
which I'm taking as a
especially in your area. That seems like a very
yeah,
niche breed to be in such a regional
it is. Admittedly,
animal shelter.
2 of them are crosses,
Okay,
so they're not purebred, but 2 of them are purebred. So it's very, um I got sent those by my mum today because she knows that I'm looking for them, and I kind of went, "You know what? I feel like this is a sign for no less than 4 of them to be looking for adoption right at this point in time when I'm looking for a pet and this is my, like, dream next dog."
so very
And
serendipitous.
it is very serendipitous, and I'm kind of leaning towards in the next couple of weeks, I may or may not have myself a new friend.
Would you think that you would give them a new name or keep their existing name?
It depends on which one I end up adopting because they
Sure.
range in age. Um, 2 of them are very young pups.
Mhm.
One is 3 years old and one is 6 years old, and I believe the 3 and the 6-year-old both already have names,
Sure.
um, and I would respect that.
Sure.
But if I were to go with one of the pups, I have a few names in mind,
Okay.
some being
I I
closer related.
I figured as much, but, I wasn't going to pry too hard.
You'll find out.
Okay. Curious,
I
watch this space.
one that I did think about, the obvious like coaster name is Millie with Millennium Force, Millie.
Mm.
But my sister had a dog named Millie, so that's off the cards. So that will not happen. But there are a few other I've been thinking all the way home from the Gold Coast about coaster-related dog names. So if you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments.
Muse. I personally am of the mindset that if you get a pet, you should name it a very person name. You know, like if you're bringing Trade home, you go, shh, just be quiet. I don't want to wake Greg up.
Greg. Steven.
Trevor's asleep in the other room.
And then the opposite to that is naming your children
Fluffy.
Rover.
Mr. Pebbles.
Oh God. I feel like you'd be arrested for that, wouldn't you?
Well, wasn't
Or at
there
least
like someone
it
who
shouldn't.
told that they couldn't name their child Optimus Prime or something?
Yeah, that would make sense. We were talking about the fact that you can't name your child, in Australia at least, you can't name your child anything that's a title.
Like Sir or Madam or something.
Yeah, but even like
Or
more
Dame.
common ones like major or judge or bishop.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't do that. It's because it's considered like potential fraud.
Yeah, if it was like saying bishop and with your surname, you would think that
Yeah,
that
you
is an
would think
actual bishop.
that person's a bishop. Yeah, no, you're not allowed to do that in Australia. It's one of the criteria for names that are on the like banned list is if it's something that suggests a certain status, then
Right.
you can't name somebody that. So there you go. Don't name your son King or or something like that.
I imagine that that's probably quite a common thing, but then you get into sort of things like where you use things like that in other languages. Like I think the name Raja is king in certain South Asian languages.
Yeah. I think actually Australia is quite unique in having that law. Because let's be honest, that's a really elaborate fraud scheme. If you were going to
Playing the
name
long game.
you're really playing the long game if you're going to name your child like Reverend and then try and scam the church or something. It's
Or if you your surname's Green and you want to have a living Cluedo piece.
No, I think it's I see where they're coming from. Like you shouldn't be able to have an implied status that you haven't earned just because of your name. But yeah, at the same time, I'm like, I don't think anyone's deliberately out there scheming to name their child something so that they can commit fraud or something like that.
I just like the idea of naming someone's child after a very specific person. Like, imagine if you like named your this is my little girl June Dally Watkins Jones.
Like doing surname as well as one of the
Yeah, yeah.
names. I'm looking at a Hobbit poster in this room at my dad's house right now, and I'm imagining like, hi, my name is Ian McKellen Watson.
Have you met my daughter, Queen Latifah Jones?
Oh God. Oh. Yeah, don't name your kids weird things.
Speaking of Hollywood, Oscar nominations came out last night.
They indeed did.
And we have Oscar-nominated actress Ariana Grande.
Yeah,
And also Oscar-nominated actress Cynthia Erivo. But she already
I'm
had been
very
an Oscar
happy.
nominee
I'm very happy
for
about
Harriet.
that. I'm very happy about that, but the Oscar nominations overall, I'm not too pleased with.
There's I haven't seen all of the films, but there's one film that's nominated quite a bit that what I have seen of it, I don't get why it was nominated.
Yeah, I think we might be talking about the same film.
Yeah, because the one scene that I did see, I was like, my God, what is this?
Are we talking about the oh God, why can't I remember the name of it now? The one with Selena Gomez in it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am 100% here for representation. But, I guess with representation, there also comes mediocrity as well as excellence.
Yes.
um,
Sex
yeah,
change
that's the one I'm
operation.
thinking of. My God.
I
Man
see,
to
I see,
woman,
I
penis to
see.
vagina.
Penis to vagina.
That's been rattling around in my head all day.
When I first saw that on like TikTok or Instagram or wherever, that was stuck in my head for like a week. Just like the man to woman,
Woman,
or woman
woman
to
to
man,
man,
man
man
to
to
woman,
woman,
from penis
penis
to
to vagina.
vagina.
It's so like I want to know what someone said at the table read.
Hmm.
Like, did anyone question it?
So here's what gets
And
me the most about like maybe there's scenes that we're not seeing that
totally.
make
And
it
I will withhold full judgment until I see the film in its entirety. But
true, but
oof,
what has it got? 13 Oscar nominations or something like that
it's the most nominated foreign language film of it in history.
of all time, yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm pretty sure it's up there with the most because what's the most Oscar nominations of all time
I
is
think it's been like 16 or something. I don't know. It was something ridiculous.
because I remember it was like hang on, I'm googling this now. Most nominations received by a single film. It missed out by one.
Really? So 14.
Yeah, most nominations by a single film is a tie, a three-way tie, 14. Um, All About
Return of the
Eve,
King?
Titanic, and La La Land
Oh, okay.
all have
I
14
think Return of
nominations.
the King only got 13. Like, yeah, I don't think it got that much.
Yeah. Well, Return of the King has the largest
And
sweep.
don't get me
Um,
started on fucking La La Land. My God.
you know, I love La La Land. I will I will just
We
say it. Look,
we shall differ on that opinion.
I'm a fan of it. And I think what angers me the most about that particular Oscars is that the the film that did win, I felt was not particularly worthy.
But also, it might be one of those things where it wasn't necessarily made for you. Like, like
That's very true.
it seemed like a very specific cultural reference. And,
It
maybe that's what I'm missing out from Emilia Perez, which was the other film that we were talking about.
possibly,
Um,
absolutely, and I'd be willing to say, look, the judging by the content, it's definitely not targeted at me. I do feel though that it was not. Um, I miss the days when the Oscars, the best picture was something that everyone would remember. Like you think about the best picture of like 80s, 90s, even into the early 2000s. If you named a year and said this is the one that won best picture, then everyone know it was like one of the most influential films of that year. Whereas now
not
you
always.
I
I
think it
I I
was. I think it always has. I think like going through the 90s and stuff.
Do you honestly think that Crash was,
Oh, look, there's exceptions.
yeah.
There's certainly exceptions, but looking through the 90s, we're talking about like Dances with Wolves, Silence of the Lambs, Unforgiven, Schindler's List, Forrest Gump, Braveheart, English Patient, Titanic, Shakespeare in
I
Love, American
wouldn't
Beauty.
necessarily. I know Unforgiven is viewed very favorably, but I wouldn't say that it's had a massive cultural footprint, I should say.
Isn't it the one that started Clint Eastwood's directing career?
Yeah, but other than that, like, do you hear people referencing Unforgiven?
Certainly not as much as the others, but I think it is certainly more culturally impactful than, and I'm not going to use Moonlight as an example because I do believe, like you said, that it's not necessarily made for me. But let's say 2011, The Artist, I would say,
Yeah. Because whatever happened to Jean Dujardin? He sort of just kept doing French films. He didn't really make a big Hollywood breakthrough.
yeah, like out of all of the, I didn't even see Coda.
I think
Um,
that has been a shift in the cultural zeitgeist, or it's helped draw attention to definitely accessibility, um, and sort of, people having
right.
I I don't know if it's coincidence, but I think distinctly have noticed more sign language interpreters in recent years since
Hmm.
Coda, and that may be a coincidence, but I think it's one of
Here's
those visibility things.
here's my controversial opinion, and this may be very unprogressive of me, but a film should not win Best Picture for its message. You
Okay.
can have, at the end of the
But you're
day, like,
also talking as if the Oscars has never been political.
oh, of course it's political, but it shouldn't be. I think
I don't know. I
it's
think people accept.
it's look, it's fantastic that we have so much, and I know that nothing's created in a vacuum. Almost any art is inherently political or
Mm,
inherently inherently a commentary on something. Because nothing's created without in a vacuum with the absence of context. But I don't think that that context should determine whether or not it's a good film. I don't think that a a brilliant film that is artfully created that has a more light-hearted message or one that is less relevant in the political or cultural zeitgeist should be frowned upon by the Academy Awards compared to a film that may not be as much of an accomplishment artistically speaking, but just happens to comment on the right thing that's particularly relevant at that given moment.
mm. But
Uh,
there's give and take with these things, and sometimes films of the former win and films of the latter win as well.
of course, I think at some point it shifted though. Like you look at those films that won in the 90s and there's no shortage of political commentary there, like Schindler's List. Um, there's no shortage of films there that were made with a message. But I don't think there's any one of them that, like, perhaps the least relevant of them today is Unforgiven, and that still potentially is the beginning of the career of someone that we look back on as a great Hollywood director, even if it's not
Mm,
his best or necessarily the best movie ever. But you're talking about films like Silence of the Lambs and Forrest Gump and Braveheart that are reflected upon as some of the best films of all time.
mm,
Um, and every single one of them remembered. Whereas we're now in the 2010s sorry, looking now to the 2010s and 2020s, I think a lot of them are, very forgettable. Um, and I do feel honestly that a lot of them get the leg up because of their message, even though the film itself was not really all that. For example, The Shape of Water. I'm sorry, Guillermo del Toro, but
don't you be coming after my boy Guillermo.
I love Guillermo del Toro. I love him to death, but The Shape of Water was not his best work.
I know, but yeah, it made the monster fuckers happy.
Oh, I'm choking.
I
Oh,
d
God. And
like, you
see,
know that
really,
people were tumbling about that for years after.
they were with that one. I think the reason The Shape of Water makes me the most angry is that I don't see it from either perspective either. Like, if you were going to give it to the one with the most important message, the other nominees were things like Call Me By Your Name and Get Out and The Post, which were
I
all
feel
like
like Get Out was probably
Get Out
the
was,
the better.
yeah. But then
Call
if
Me
you were
By
going
Your
to give
Name,
it
I
to,
still find a little bit off for
yeah,
me, but
Jordan Peele, start giving your films better names. Um, but then if you were going to give it just on pure like film technique and like how well made it was, you also had things like Dunkirk and three billboards that I thought were far better made films. So, and Lady Bird. So I don't understand how The Shape of Water won by any criteria, really.
who knows?
The
Maybe there were
Academy
just a lot
and
of
its
monster fuckers voting that year.
yeah, the Academy and
We
its
feel
ways,
seen.
the bestiality hidden within. maybe the maybe the real maybe the real best picture was the bestiality hidden within all of us along the way.
Maybe the real prize was the fish we met along the way.
Oh God. We haven't talked about roller coasters yet.
No, we briefly mentioned not pet names regarding roller coasters, but no, we haven't mentioned roller coasters specifically.
We haven't mentioned any of them. Um, Big news, Dreamworld is doing a brilliant little thing right now. I don't know if you've seen this. So after the, let's just call it a washout that
The
was After Dark.
Dreamworld underwater.
Dreamworld Underwater that happened over the weekend. They have gone out and scheduled a new After Dark event for
Oh,
February
that's
8th.
nice.
And every member, every pass holder who booked a ticket to After Dark this past weekend will get a free ticket
Oh, that's lovely.
to this upcoming After Dark 2.0.
That's cool. They didn't have to do that, but that's really nice.
That it's this is what makes Dreamworld the best theme park on the Gold Coast right now. They're just killing it.
Yeah.
And I'm actually putting it out there. I'm gonna be going. I'm actually gonna
Okay.
um I'll be working Monday to Friday. That's on a Saturday night. So I'm actually gonna get in the car and go up to the Gold Coast for the weekend because why not? I've got an annual pass. Let's go.
That will be after I'm allowed out of my sling. However, I still think it's probably a bit soon for me to be attempting rides that have over the shoulder
Yes.
restraints.
I would certainly say so. Although Hunger Rush doesn't have over the shoulder restraints.
I just want to give it another month.
Yeah, fair
Just
enough. Fair enough.
because
Take it
I
easy.
still can't raise my arm. So
Don't
let's take baby steps here.
don't risk anything, of course. Um,
It may just be one of those things where, I have to just have a giant gap in content for Ejector Bear Time Season 1. And to be fair, I'm still working on, the Adventure Park Geelong and Adventure World episodes, so it's just maybe a case of me spacing things out, but,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm hoping that, uh, Wild Mouse at Luna Park reopens by about March or so,
I'd hope so. Judging by
and so
progress,
I might
it's
squeeze in a Luna Park trip, but, even if I do, I still won't be getting on Sledgehammer because even though I'm small enough for it, I'm not putting my shoulder through that ride.
yeah, I'd say definitely that's a really like even more than most with over the shoulder restraints, it does put your shoulders under a particular level of strain,
Yeah.
particularly during those moments of long hang time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would not recommend.
So I'm just I want to give my my collarbone as much time to heal up as possible before I attempt any ride with an over the shoulder restraint. I want to give it at least 3 months post injury.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Absolutely. No,
Things like a wild mouse is I'm assuming should be fine, but yeah, nothing with an
yeah,
over the shoulder restraint.
ease yourself back into it.
Yeah. I
I'd
think
say even
by
if you do,
April I might be able to give it a go.
yeah,
Fingers crossed.
yeah,
But it just
that's
means that, I won't be doing any Gold Coast trips and stuff until then, I think.
fair enough.
Well,
Uh,
maybe because none of the ones that I've got left on the Gold Coast have all over the shoulder restraints.
that's true.
Storm Coaster,
Yep, flat
um, yep. Movie World is Flight of the Wicked Witch and Kansas Twister.
which I also have still left to go. Thanks, Movie
Oh,
World.
really?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a moment. You finish your
Okay.
thought.
And Jungle Rush and Kenny's Forest Flyers has over the shoulders.
Hmm. Hmm. Although I would say, oh, actually no, because they are quite Kenny's
It's a
Forest
kids coaster,
Flyers.
so it's a little bit more restrictive.
Yeah, they're very like tight.
And I don't want to refracture my shoulder just because of a hang and bang.
Yeah, absolutely not. I would say your worry there is not the forces, it's the restrictiveness of the restraint itself.
Yeah.
Um,
It
because
may be a case of me doing like maybe coming up for a weekend and doing SeaWorld and Movie World, but then saving Dreamworld for another weekend.
saving Dreamworld for last, yeah. It um yeah, Kenny's Forest Flyer, like they're quite bulky and they sit very tightly against the shoulders of taller riders. So
Yeah. And also I haven't been able to sort of really properly exercise. I've put a little bit of weight back on, so I just need to trim back down again.
yeah, yeah, fair enough. I would say yeah, it'd be worthwhile um giving yourself some time before you attempt Forest Flyer in particular, yeah.
Yeah.
Um
But yes, do tell me about this Movie World trip.
well, should I tell you about the movie world or the dream world first? Because I've been to both since our last recording.
Let's rip the band-aid off and let's do Movie World.
Okay. When I say that this was the worst trip I've had to any individual theme park, um, ever, anywhere in
Oof.
the world, I I have wanted that so badly. I've been trying to think of examples. I've been wanting so badly for myself to be wrong, but I cannot think of a single example of a worse day that I've had at any park ever.
Jeez.
It was atrocious how badly they were operating things. Um, so obviously I turned up. So let me give you little bit of background. My original intention was to do Movie World on the Wednesday and SeaWorld on the Thursday. For various reasons, I was unable to do a park on the Wednesday. So obviously my thought was, okay, well, I'll spend most of Thursday at Movie World and then I'll just duck over to SeaWorld because there's nothing new there. I just want to get a lap in on Leviathan and call it a day.
Sure. Yep.
So I headed to Movie World early on Thursday morning.
Mm-hmm.
Couple of storms on the horizon, so things opened a little bit late, just due to lightning in the area, and that's fine. That's to be expected. But my obvious focus was there's Flight of the Wicked Witch, Kansas Twister, and obviously I also hadn't been on Flash Speed Force yet, so I headed to Wizard of Oz first of all.
Mm-hmm.
Started giving my reviews of everything there and what I thought of all of the theming. I had arrived at the park and gotten into the park at about 9:40 and headed straight for Wizard of Oz and got in line for Flight of the Wicked Witch.
Mhm.
I got onto Flight of the Wicked Witch at around 11:30.
Okay.
So 2 hours in line.
Mhm.
Um, let me just say that queue is stinky, stinky
Oof.
hot. It is so hot. There's no shade anywhere. It is awful. I got sunburnt immediately because I realized I hadn't applied sunscreen that morning about
Oh,
an hour and a half into the wait and went, well, like, there's no going back now. And I just burned to a crisp.
jeez.
Um, and while I was there, I decided this is going really, really slow. I'm gonna time a cycle and see what's going on, see what's going on here. Um, I hit start on my timer when the train hit the brakes, and I pressed stop on the timer when the train then I heard the sound of the train being dispatched. 6 minutes and 44 seconds. 6 minutes and 44 seconds. Not in that
It's a
doesn't include the ride cycle, not that it's a very long ride cycle anyway. But it took them nearly 7 minutes to unload a train and reload it. That's
that's excessive.
absurdly long. Um, so yeah, I was already not very impressed. Kansas Twister was down for the entire day
Jeez.
for unscheduled maintenance, so I still have neither of those credits. So I headed next for Flash Speed Force, where
So
I proceeded.
you did get on
I got on
Flight of
Flight of
the
the
Wicked.
Wicked Witch,
Okay.
yes. Um, I then
I thought
headed
you
for
were about to
Flash.
say that you got on it and then they did an evac or something and you couldn't ride it.
No, no, I did get on Flash. Oh no, Flight of the Wicked Witch. I
Mhm.
then headed for Flash Speed Force, where I waited an hour for that. I there are a few interesting design choices there that I am also going to rant about in a video
Mhm.
because I think Movie World are making some very dumb decisions. Um, just
Are we
with the
talking
way
the
they're
queue line?
operating things.
All right.
Well, when you went, because you've been on Speed Force, right?
I have.
Did it have the little pin mechanism with the seat belts to prevent you from unlocking your seatbelt?
I think so.
That's stupid. That's really dumb. So they already have this procedure, right, where Movie World operators have to do your seatbelt for you. You can't do it yourself.
Hmm. It
So
was more I can't remember specifically if that was the case, but it does sound I remember the seat belts.
yeah, so you've got your over the shoulder restraint, and you've got the like Intamin style seatbelt that clips in
Yeah.
with the two little golden wings. And what I noticed was, for context for anybody else that doesn't know what we're talking about, they've added, and this is not standard on any Intamin restraint as far as I know. They've come up with this themselves. There's a little mechanical pin that retracts once the ride starts, and it sits in the way of one of the little golden wings, so that during the ride you're unable to pinch the wings together and undo your seatbelt.
Hmm.
Like, at least that's the theory, that you can't undo it during the ride. It took a solid 30 to 40 seconds after the ride stopped for that pin to retract again so that everyone could undo their seatbelts. We were all just trapped in there waiting for this pin to come back out. It, why? And all for what? Because as coaster enthusiasts, we all know the seatbelt doesn't really do anything. It's not a safety feature. It's a piece of redundancy and essentially a measuring device. It doesn't do anything. Why are you adding more redundant stuff for the rides and for the operators to do? Just for nothing. For what? Oh great, you've decreased the chances of something happening from 1 in 2 billion to 1 in 3 billion. Great, good job. Fantastic. Meanwhile, everyone else was waiting down there during that time, getting more and more frustrated and more sunburned.
That queue line is frustrating.
It's really bad. And then
we waited in there for over an hour, and then just as we got to the front of the line, the ride went down.
Yeah.
And they had to get maintenance in. And so they're like, "Oh, you can come back later." I'm like, "I am not giving up this spot in this queue."
Did you
You drag me out of here.
did you find it rough?
It wasn't long enough to be rough.
That's true, but like, could you feel the track joints and everything?
No, I didn't really notice. It was the first time I'd been on a surf rider, so I can't say I
Yeah,
really noticed. It was a lot of
it's
new experiences.
I was kind of like, oh well, at least it'll be decent because they will have refurbished it after they removed it from Wet and Wild and everything. No, 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 no.
I didn't notice it especially rough.
It every track joint, you felt it and heard it rumble through the like jolt through the train.
See,
It
I found
was
Leviathan rough. That hurt.
Yeah, I'll talk about Leviathan in a second. I don't know if I'd call it rough. I'd call it aggressive, as
I would call it
that's so
rough,
mid
especially on a larger person, in those restraints.
Okay, yeah. I do know the gravity group, those Timberline and lap bars are not
Yeah.
great for larger
Terrible
people.
design. Terrible,
Yeah.
terrible design.
See, I don't have that problem. So because I'm quite skinny, it sits quite firmly across me and I don't
I have that
really
problem less nowadays, but it still doesn't negate the point that it is
Mm.
a fucked up design.
Mm. But anyway, Movie World, they're not getting off the
Sure.
hook here.
Okay.
Because actually the last hour and a half of the day that I got to spend at SeaWorld was very pleasant actually, by comparison. So I checked on the app after getting those 2 credits and realizing that Kansas Twister was not gonna open, so no hope of getting the other 2 credits. The shortest line was Flash Speed Force, 60 minutes.
Oof.
The longest line was DC Rivals,
Mhm.
180 minutes.
Jesus Christ.
Keep in mind, this was not a particularly busy day. Like, it was relatively like, moderately crowded, I would call it. It was a warm day in January, people had turned up, but it was not packed. 180 minutes for DC Rivals. I ended up forking out for backwards seats because I was like, I want to ride on it, but I'm not waiting that long. Screw that.
Yeah.
I then went to get in line for Superman because I was like, right, well, I'm going to have time to get in line for one more ride, maybe, before I have to go if I want any chance of getting a ride on Leviathan. And Superman went down immediately, ride evac. At that same time, DC Rivals, I believe, was also down. Flight of the Wicked Witch was down. And something else was too. I think Wild West Falls went down at one point. So
That
I
doesn't
went over to
surprise
Green
me.
Lantern because I was like, well, might as well get a ride on something. And it went down while I was in line. And then came back up, fortunately. All this while it was 35 degrees. Operations just the slowest thing I've ever seen. I got a ride on Green Lantern and immediately just left the park and was like, I'm done. I'm going to SeaWorld. I'm done.
Yeah.
Fed up with this. Can't be bothered hanging around here any longer. And then I went to SeaWorld and Leviathan it's certainly gotten more aggressive. I think with the context of the other gravity groups I've been on, I don't think it's awful. It's got like that natural rattle to it though. Um, but I enjoyed the ride anyway. And the operations were actually very swift, and I got on it in maybe like 5 to 10 minutes. And then enjoyed a beer at SeaWorld and went home. But Movie World, consistently through the day. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention was at the start of the day, after those thunderstorms went over, there was just a little tiny bit of drizzle that hung around for like maybe half an hour after the
Right.
start of the day. And they started operations on the rides, and then immediately, like 3 drops of rain fall from the sky, and we get someone coming through the queue going, "Oh, Flight of the Wicked Witch is down for weather." I looked at the weather app, and there's like there's like 3 drops of rain that I can see falling into the blatantly obvious drainage thing in the middle of the layout that's so fucking ugly. And I look at the weather app, no lightning in the vicinity. Wind speed is like 12 kilometers an hour. Temperature is like a moderate 29, 30 degrees. What weather are we stopping for? What are
Yeah.
you talking about? I, if anyone, and they don't, I know they don't, because they don't care about what creators have to say. But if anyone from Movie
Except
World
for
is
one.
listening, except for one, but if anyone from Movie World is listening to this, when did you guys stop caring about guest experience? I get it. Safety's important. Safety's king. But seriously, the way you're operating some of these rides is absurd. Absolutely absurd. How are we waiting 3 hours for things on just some random Thursday in January? You're not
Yeah.
Disneyland. That's not a normal queue time.
It's like they would rather do anything but put a second train on something.
Yeah, that's the other thing I don't know if I mentioned. Yeah, one train on DC Rivals, one train on Superman. Um, Green Lantern, I'm pretty sure, was the only ride in the park running more than one ride vehicle. Wild West Falls also, I assume. I didn't actually go over there.
Like, surely they can predict crowd numbers due to the time of day, or not time of day, time of year, like seasonality and whatnot, and staff accordingly to run more than one train on
I
rides.
can't think of another park that would not run 2 trains on, like, DC Rivals just automatically in summer. For example, Emerald Park would automatically start the day with 2 trains, and if the day was really, really quiet, then maintenance would come around and take one off. Like, because that makes sense, right? You wanna be prepared for maximum capacity, and if later on it turns out you don't need that, then you can take it off. But
Yeah.
but how are we here with a 3-hour line for DC Rivals, and they're just like, "Yeah, just keep running one train."
It's ludicrous.
It's ridiculous. It's really ridiculous, and to really rub salt in their wounds here, Dreamworld After Dark, despite the weather, because it thunderstormed all day and we got absolutely stoked,
Yeah.
was packed to the rafters. It's probably the busiest I've seen Dreamworld in years. There was so many people there. The longest I waited for any ride was maybe 30 minutes.
Wow. And that's for like a park that has a completely new precinct in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I waited longer than about 30 minutes for anything. The only exception is when Jungle Rush went down because of lightning in the area.
Sure.
So there was a significant delay. Other than
I,
that, 30 minutes.
I wonder when the tipping point on word of mouth will be, where
It
Dreamworld starts to get better numbers than Movie World.
it's got to be coming because like you guys have heard me over the last little while on the podcast and even in my videos saying Dreamworld's the better park just because of the way it's being run.
Yeah.
And I was saying it at the time like, oh, I just kind of lean Dreamworld at the moment. I I had all these provisos on it, like, oh, but Movie World's got the better lineup, but no, Dreamworld. I didn't even have fun at Movie World. I actually really, and you'll see in my vlog how drained I get by the end of the day. Of just, I'm just not enjoying this day at all.
Yeah.
I'm hot. I'm sick of standing in line. I have watched operations that are just embarrassingly bad, and I don't want to be here anymore. I would rather be at another park where I know I would be having more fun. Whereas at Dreamworld, I stayed there from before 10 in the morning till after 10 at night because I was just enjoying the hell out of myself despite the fact that it was bucketing rain. I I had a great time, and that tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
It's something's got to change, and I'm really not sure that's just Village Roadshow because, like I said, admittedly, I was only at SeaWorld for an hour and a half, but Leviathan was running fine. Operations were pretty smooth. Everything seemed okay.
Mm.
It was just Movie World that was just this absolute nightmare the whole day. And I don't understand how they can be running it so badly.
Yeah. It's like, are
So
they
yeah, that
trying
was
to I'm wondering whether it's just like they're trying to skimp on staffing or what the deal is.
yeah, I'm not sure. It didn't seem like from what I noticed like any of the rides were understaffed. Like all of them had the necessary amount of staff as far as I could see. Um I do have some thoughts on why Flight of the Wicked Witch's operations are so slow. Um, and it's all just part of the way that they've set that ride up.
In what way? So if you can
Oh,
to compare it between TNT and Wicked Witch,
okay.
what do you think the differences are?
Just refresh my memory first of all. Does TNT have seat belts on its lap bars, or is it
Yes, I
just
think
the
it
lap bar?
does.
It
No,
does.
I think it has seat belts.
Okay, so you would assume, right, that when you sit down on TNT, you pull your lap bar down and clip your seatbelt in, and someone comes and checks that, right?
Yeah.
Right. Movie World's policy is you pull down your lap bar. If you touch your seatbelt, they'll make you undo it and they'll do it again for you.
Jesus Christ.
Um,
I know
Probably the
they're
biggest.
extremely risk averse on the Gold Coast, but that's
Dreamworld's not doing that.
and also they
Dreamworld's,
have to check it anyway.
yeah, like I don't understand what difference that makes. They still have to check it.
Yeah.
The only ride at Dreamworld that's doing anything similar is Steel Taipan, which I get the sense is just because those Mark seatbelts are like such a weird design that they just they just think it's more of a time saver if they do it rather than people fiddling around with it and doing it wrong. But these are not complicated. Like they're pretty simple seatbelts. I don't understand, and that was the case for every ride at Movie World. Like, you do the lap bar, we'll do the seatbelt is like the policy. But then the biggest time waster on Flight of the Wicked Witch was they won't open the air gates until everyone's off the exit platform. And that they have a magnetic gate on
I
the
think
exit
that's the
platform.
case with TNT. They make sure everyone's out of the station before they open the gates.
Yeah, so the problem with Flight of the Wicked Witch is, first of all, they have a magnetic gate that they can't open the air gates until that magnetic gate is closed,
Mhm.
which they can't do until everybody's out. But
Yep.
also, they haven't signposted the goddamn exit.
Oh, yeah.
So
You
every
got
single
people wondering
time,
where they're going.
People are just like, well, where do I go? Where do I go? Where do I go? Because, people are. I'm not even going to say people are stupid. Honestly, if I hadn't been sat right next to it, I probably wouldn't have known where the exit was either.
Yeah.
Like,
TNT does have seatbelts, by the way.
it does. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't remember off the top of my head, but I definitely think that they didn't have a stupid policy about you not being allowed to do the seatbelt.
Well, they've got the audio announcement telling you to put the seatbelts in.
Yeah. I don't understand what that is meant to prevent. What does that do?
Yeah,
Because
the
you
announcement says, um, once you're seated, put your arms through the middle, pull those harnesses down nice and snug, and put your seatbelt in. The demo crew will check that you're secure for the ride.
yeah, which makes sense. If someone can do their harness up themselves adequately, then let them do it because you can check that in half a second.
Mm. It may be a difference between Queensland safety laws and Victorian ones. Who knows?
Possibly, but again, I think from memory, Dreamworld, Giant Drop, we did our own seatbelts, and the attendant just came around and checked it. And like
Don't
the only
know.
exception to that is Steel Taipan. So I don't understand what's going on here because Dreamworld, with the only exception being Steel Taipan, you do your own harness and they come and check, just like everywhere else, just like every other jurisdiction in every other park in the country. You do it by yourself and they check it. And as far as I can tell, the reason that Steel Taipan is an exception is the complexity of the seatbelt design and also that RFID tag that they have um, to verify. So that's why it's different. But Movie World, without exception, every single restraint, they tell you to pull down the restraint, but do not touch the seatbelt. And it's
I'm
such a waste of time.
yeah. I think it's no. I don't even know how to. I'm just speculating. Yeah,
Yeah, it's look, Flight of the Wicked Witch. I think also, um, just after having seen the land and seen how everything operates there, wrong choice. SFC was the wrong choice. I was
yeah.
willing to give them some leeway and say that another family coaster was maybe a good investment for them. Wrong choice.
Well, the ride cycle's so short that it's probably not enough time to load a second train.
No, yeah, it's not, and also the fact that it only runs one train makes
Well, yeah, there's
everything.
no real sort of brake run at the end that because the
Yeah,
brake run is the station.
yeah, it's
It's not designed for a second train.
Movie World needs something with two trains, which
Yeah,
is why I think. Look, admittedly, I haven't seen it in operation yet, so I don't know. Maybe there are some problems with it too. But Kansas Twister makes sense to me as an
yeah,
investment for a family coaster because at least you're getting two trains worth per dispatch.
yeah. The
Um,
novelty of racing.
yep, makes sense. Flight of the Wicked Witch, I saw it in operation, and it was bad. It was really bad. Um, yeah, they were slow. Everyone was getting really, really frustrated. Um, because every time, and I assumed there were like delays and stuff as well, with which was probably what was making those dispatch times so embarrassingly bad. But the fact that there was only one train just made that so much worse because whenever there was no dispatch happening, there was nothing. There was nothing happening. The line wasn't moving.
Ugh,
Um, it's not a ride model made for a park of that size.
that sucks.
Yeah, just really isn't good.
So tell us
As
about your
for
Dream World day.
I will. I will just quickly say though about Movie World, I do want to like not just bitch about them this whole time. There are some really good elements to the theming of what they've done with Wizard of Oz. I think it's little rough around the edges, needs some neatening up, but it's nothing that they can't fix. Um, and I'm very impressed by the Emerald City facade. I'm very impressed by the entrance to the queue with the poppy fields and the haunted forest. They were really, really magnificent. So shout out, if anyone, to Pico Play.
Yeah,
Um, they
Pico
did
Play have
such
been great.
Pico Play. You guys did such a good job with it. I get the sense that maybe Movie World didn't give you the budget or the license that you deserved, and I just want to say
I
to
think your
anybody
phone
that was,
agrees.
yeah, I just want to say to anybody that that was involved on the Pico Play side of things, um, yeah, you guys did a fantastic job with what you managed to pull off there. Um, which will be my segue into Pico Play. Holy shit, you guys did an amazing job with Rivertown. Like, whoa, it's
So,
awesome.
what was the expected and what was the surprise for you?
Um, okay. I have both good and bad surprises about Rivertown.
Okay.
The good surprise is Jane's Rivertown restaurant. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put it out there. This might be one of the best theme park dining experiences anywhere in the world.
Oh wow. That's a big call.
It's got a very extensive menu of fantastic dishes. So much, so far beyond anything I've ever had at a theme park before. Brilliant cocktails and stuff as well. Fantastic. The level of detail in the theming in there is incredible. The animatronics are great. Then the Easter eggs. There are Easter eggs on Easter eggs in there. The whole place just looks superb. The service is fantastic. The food is brilliant. It's it's incredible. And if you are a long-term fan of Dreamworld, you are going to be gushing at this place because I guarantee if you have a favorite ride that doesn't exist anymore, there's an Easter egg in there somewhere.
That's cute. I like that.
You'll be able to find it. It's so good. So, so good. Jane's Rivertown restaurant. Do not miss it. Go and eat there. It's fantastic. I I could not believe how good it was. Um, as for the rides, Morrissippi Motors is good. It's really good. I'm very glad they went with petrol.
Yep.
Um, it really gives it a good amount of charm. The ability to control your speed it gives it a good amount of charm as well. My only critique is that you can see like chain link fences and the edges of the concrete and stuff, and I will say that that will probably improve once the foliage grows in.
Yeah.
Um, right now there's parts of it that just look a little bare, and I would just I suspect it's just because the plants haven't fully grown in yet. So
Yeah.
I'd say give that a year and that it'll be pretty much perfect. I really think it's the ultimate version that the vintage cars have ever been. Um, it's the little things about it, like not like the theming elements are all fantastic, but like the little bit where you drive through the water, driving behind the waterfall, it's so much more fun and engaging than the vintage cars ever was before. I really think it's the perfected version of that ride, and that's a credit to what Dreamworld have kind of envisioned it to be, to keep that classic ride model around, but just make it such a really refined and perfected version of itself. I really love it. Morrissippi Motors is great.
How
Um,
are the cars as far as all weather? Like, is it does it protect you from the rain at all, or is it like just more like a as if you're under a pergola kind of thing?
I will say we rode it in the rain in after at the very beginning of After Dark, and it doesn't protect you particularly well from the
Okay.
rain. Um, it it wasn't raining awfully hard when I rode it, but it was raining, and I did still get a little bit wet. So maybe that's something they could improve. Yeah, it could definitely. Those roofs are definitely more for decoration than for.
Okay,
Um,
that's just what I was curious about.
yeah, definitely more for decoration than for protection. But honestly, we Heidi and I were saying that like riding it in the rain actually kind of added to that experience being the first time for us because it really did feel like we were just off on this little expedition through the jungle, like driving this little dodgy vintage car.
Yeah,
I was kind of having the time of my life at that point.
it's a
We were
cute
loving it.
little ride, and it's well themed enough to make it entertaining for everybody.
It really is. It's
Whereas
fantastically well themed.
the previous version, vintage cars iteration, was a little bit okay. This is cute, and then gets old very quickly once you turn around the first bend.
Yeah, they were certainly. I think all of the previous iterations of the vintage cars have been pretty plainly themed. So this is a nice refresh of it. I really like what they've done.
Mm,
Um, I think overall as well, the areas outside the rides, I've put a lot of thought into everything. The benches are themed, the bins are themed. There's little like theming scenery off in like the kind of garden areas that are off the paths. Fencing around the rides is themed. It's really well done. Um, Jungle Rush is, even though it is the best family coaster in Australia, it is the bad surprise.
okay,
Rivertown. Um, but with an asterisk. The asterisk is I have heard that things are not quite finished with
right,
Jungle Rush. So there may be more to come that might kind of patch it up and make it better.
okay,
But as it stands right now, um, there's a little bit of there's gaps in the
okay.
theming
Don't
that
tell me
are
too much.
made. Yeah, I won't spoil anything, but there are gaps that are made more obvious by the fact that the rest of Rivertown is so good.
Right,
You tend to notice those things a little bit more about Jungle Rush, that it's like, oh, okay, that's yeah, that there's like just blank walls here or something, and it's kind of not
right.
really up to the scratch that the rest of the land is. I'm kind of hoping, and I've heard rumors about what the additions that are still to come are going to be. Um, and I think it could definitely take another step up in my books. It already is to me the best family coaster in Australia. Um, it just needs a little patching up in that theming department.
Okay.
Because yeah, like I will say the ride cycles so good. Like it's a really it's kind of got that TNT vibe about it where it's yeah, it's a family coaster, but like it's got some oomph.
Okay.
It's got some surprising moments.
How
There's
you say the forces and the laterals and the airtime is?
there is one particular turn over the turn that goes over the water has really really good laterals, like almost aggressive laterals. There's a dip off one of um the leftmost path if you're facing down the turntable has a dip off the turntable that has great airtime in the back. There's a good airtime hop into the brakes. Pretty much that entire outer lap as well is full of some really fun little airtime and lateral moments. It's pretty well varied. It's got good amounts of force for a family coaster without being too much. Yeah, it's a very satisfying ride. I'd recommend if you can only pick one, depart the station backwards.
Okay. Good to know.
Um, you'll simply because at the moment the ride cycles that they're running are essentially um, so there's kind of an inner loop and an outer loop of track. The inner loop is the one that goes indoors and you'll see more theming. The outer loop is the more forceful one.
Right.
So if you depart backwards, you'll do the inner loop forwards and the outer loop backwards. So the inner loop forwards means you get to see that theming and then do the outer loop backwards, which is fun and surprising and forceful. Whereas if you depart forwards, you do the inner loop backwards, which means you might miss some of that theming, and the outer loop forwards, which is still fun, but like backwards is better.
Also, I imagine that your GP people are going to want to wait for the forward-facing one because they have no real concept of that kind of thing going in.
Yeah, that's something that I noticed, and I imagine this will get better as it goes on. People seem to be very confused about the fact that no matter
It
which
does
one
both.
they choose, they'll be going both directions.
This is what my thing. It's like, you know how people who claim, "Oh, I can't sit backwards on a train. It makes me sick." I'm like, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, I kind of get it though. Like some people just don't like going backwards. But I had this whole family like holding up the line, arguing in front of me about like how some of them really didn't want to go backwards, so they wanted to go into the forwards line. And I really felt like interrupting and being like, guys, it really doesn't matter what you choose, you're gonna go backwards at some point.
Yeah,
Like
the ride does both.
it will do both. You will be going backwards on this ride, no matter which one you choose. Um, People seemed a little confused about that. There definitely was a bias towards forwards, as far as I could tell. Um, but yeah, that kind of evened out at the after dark because I was there for the whole day as well, and the day was much quieter. It was a reasonably quiet day, but then the after dark event was absolutely packed. Um, so during the day there was a real bias towards forwards, but then at the after dark event, I guess with the pass holders, they've probably all been on it before, so it evened itself out a whole lot more.
Okay.
The queue, by the way, is spectacular.
Yeah, it looks it from what I've seen.
Mm. Truly excellent. Probably the best queue in
Okay.
Australia.
Yeah, that
Um,
doesn't sound unreasonable.
I I did a live stream last night. I was asked Jungle Rush versus Leviathan in terms of queue and station area. I would say the ideal ride is Jungle Rush's queue with Leviathan's station.
Okay.
Jungle Rush has the best queue. The station is it's not unthemed, but it's like less themed than the queue.
Sure.
So if you had a Leviathan level station with a Jungle Rush level queue, perfection.
Well, it sounds like they've themed the queue to give people things to look at while they're waiting,
Yeah.
whereas when they're in the station itself, they mean business and trying to get people in and out quickly.
Yes, that
So
definitely
that
is the
makes
vibe
sense
they're
to me.
giving. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Um, you're also operating it reasonably well, reasonably
All
quickly.
right. Which
Um,
is interesting because not only is it probably the more complex ride to operate, but it probably has people more confused as to which way they got in and know where to get out and etc.
yep. Yep, definitely. They were operating it reasonably well. A couple of times I did sit on the brake run for a little while, but not for very long. Um, I was discussing this with Heidi. It's very interesting to think about this ride in terms of block zones because um so essentially, spoilers, as expected, you do go up the incline turntable twice
Yeah, I
in a
figured as
ride
much.
cycle. So that means that all of that first lap up until you hit the brakes is one block zone
Mm. And then
because
the
you
brake run is a
can't,
block zone. So,
yeah, you can't send another train up onto the turntable until the train ahead of it has done the turntable twice.
right.
At least with the way that they're currently running it. So It kind of just runs almost like a normal family coaster would, with just the 3 block zones.
Well, I
So
imagine they're not really gonna. They don't seem to plan on running it with two trains.
they have 2 trains.
I know they have two trains, but I don't think they plan on running it with two at the same time.
Yeah. Well, it's like I think I think it works the way that it is kind of fine, like 1 forwards train and 1 backwards train.
Yeah,
Um, that works fine because yeah, like it's still 2 trains.
but like the train still enters the station from the same end. Is that correct? It's just facing a different
Yes.
direction. Yeah,
Yes, yes. But it's 2 separate trains.
yeah,
So they have one facing forwards and one facing backwards. And you depart the station and return to the station facing the same direction.
right. Also,
Um,
they are running two trains.
yeah, they're running 2 trains, yes.
Okay,
So if you choose the forwards facing train, you depart the station forwards, go up the turntable, get turned, do the first loop backwards, then go back up the turntable, do the second loop forwards, and that leads you into the brake run, and you'll
right.
enter the station still facing forwards.
Makes sense.
So and vice versa. So yeah, like the trains don't swap directions. There's one forwards facing train and one backwards facing train.
Okay.
Um, Obviously with the ride of this type, they're capable of changing that, but that's the way they're running it currently.
All
Um,
right.
which kind of works. It it means like if you're waiting in the forwards line, for example, you the train ahead of you departs, they'll load another train, and by the time that one's gone, then you're in. Like you're basically just alternating trains. It kind of works.
Cool.
Yeah, that's my review. Some things we noticed. The dock is still there.
Yeah.
Hint, hint.
Hint, hint.
Um, we suspect that that may be deliberate.
Do you think that it will be for the paddle steamer getting reintroduced, or if the dock will serve as an entry point to a bridge being built to the island?
Ooh, suspect maybe not the paddle steamer, but a water-based ride that could be a cruise kind of thing
Okay.
is what I would suspect. Because
I
I
just
think that
wonder
would
whether or
suit.
not they would do that with like the turtle habitat there.
I think they still will. I think that they're quite willing to do that. They can work around the turtle habitat, I think.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it just feels like, especially with the amount of demolition that happened from changing it to ABC Kids World to Rivertown, if they didn't have any intention to use that dock, they would have got rid of it.
If they're talking about going back to their roots and whatnot, like, do we ever
Mm.
know what happened to the I don't know what the name of it was.
The Captain Sturt paddle wheeler.
That's the one.
Um, I believe it was scrapped. I could be wrong, but I would not put it beyond them to make a recreation if it was
Yeah.
scrapped. Um,
Even one that's probably a more sustainable model kind of thing.
it's definitely seems like a very Greg Yong thing to do to create a, a sustainable recreation. Also, shout out to Greg Yong, who I saw at Dreamworld. Get this, waiting and cleaning tables at Jane's Rivertown restaurant.
That's a
What
man
a
of the people
man.
right there.
What a man.
I know this sounds
Just,
like we're the movie world hating and dream world brown nosing gang here, but
well, I
people
mean,
judge people by what they do.
Movie World, I'm begging you, give me a reason to love you. And I did I did say that I fully respect the facade of the Emerald City and the entrance to the queue of Flight of the Wicked Witch. Also, from what I've seen of videos, I also love the entry to Kansas Twister. Unfortunately, didn't get to see it for myself, but I will hold up that I also do believe that that is really, really excellent.
So was that queue just roped off inside the Emerald Palace?
Yeah, they had so the whole like the room where the projection of the wizard is and everything. You've got the two doors at the very end of the room, and they just had staff members standing at the Kansas Twister door saying, "Sorry, it's closed."
Right.
Um, and the crowd was just filing down the left-hand side of the room towards Flight of the Wicked Witch.
Okay.
Um, Back to Dreamworld for a second, because another thing that I've noticed, Motor
Yes.
Coaster's entry
Mhm.
looking very temporary.
Yeah. I think just the little spray painted on sign on the side of the Rivertown
Yeah,
Emporium is indicative of
essentially
that.
no permanent signage. It's just a little path that happens to slip down the side of the building. There's it there's nothing there that's not immediately removable. Um, we heard Greg say on Dane's podcast that they've got
They have
thoughts,
plans.
they
Yeah.
have plans, and
I
I'm
reckon we're a
taking that.
year away from seeing those plans
Yep,
be
I'm
revealed.
taking that as a sign that like we need we want to keep operating it for now,
Yeah.
but we're
Well,
not going
that's
to do
fair enough
any.
until they've, you know, gotten another one of their big flagship rides back up and running. Why cut down another ride that's functional?
Oh, absolutely, fair enough. But as a motor coaster hater, the
Oh yeah.
um the encouraging sign is that I don't think they've done anything that is not very easily and cheaply removed. They've really avoided any big signage for it. They've kind of just given it this little temporary entry,
Yeah.
and it definitely feels like, yeah, this is just the solution for now, and it's gonna go soon,
Have you
which I will.
seen have you seen the suggestion that has popped up in your Discord under Park Chat?
Let me have a look right now. Let's see. Um, are we talking about the little, funeral celebration shindig
Yes.
with the. Yep. I was talking on a live stream about how I would love to go and have a party at Dreamworld to celebrate Motor Coaster
It's like,
being
but
gone.
you need to be given permission to pop a bottle of champagne. That's the thing.
Yeah, that I might have to do that from outside the park. Um,
Don't mind
but
me heading out to the car park to enjoy a bottle of Verve.
yeah, just gonna go out and pop a quick bottle of champers. I'll be right back. Um,
Sorry, I'm just gonna get a bit bougie.
I will personally volunteer to demolish it myself, though. I have no demolition experience, but I'm sure I could find a way to knock that shit
You
down.
you will voluntarily get your, I don't know, what is it, the construction white card?
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll find a way to knock that shit down. Um, yeah, no, so that was a relieving sign for me because I had this little worry that they would have kind of integrated it in some way that would be worryingly permanent or something like that.
Mm,
Um, but no, it does look very temporary. They've literally just slipped the entrance down that side of the building that used to be the Motor Coaster gift store. Um, so it's looking very like that's just there for now.
sure.
Um, yeah, that's all I've noticed at Dreamworld. I didn't get the chance to go up and check out on what was going on at our old mate Doomsday.
Well, have you seen Gold Coast Theme Parks on YouTube has put a video up in the last day or so with showing a lot of demolition and deconstruction work on Doomsday. It's
Well,
pretty
I
much all
saw
gone.
Jag's photo today. I believe the gondolas are completely gone.
They are. The only thing that's remaining is the tall central
The
mechanism that the
central,
wheel
yeah,
was on. The
the
whole
central
wheel is gone.
support. Yeah, it's all gone. Which I believe, surely at this point, we're beyond the point of any doubt that this is not an extensive maintenance or a refurbishment or something like that. It's being removed.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
It's
I am begging you, Movie World, whatever you do next, whatever you do with Doomsday's area, needs to be back to the movie studio park roots.
mm,
Um, Here's my suggestion. Take the old studio showcase building, turn that into a special effects show along the lines of what
what
they have at Universal with the I can't remember the name of it, but where you're in the boat shed and the hurricane hits.
yeah.
Um, Something along those lines. Do that in the studio showcase building. Do a themed area where Doomsday was with roving characters who are generic on-set um, kind of character performers that carrying boom mics and
Yeah, have like a director in like the breeches and with a little bullhorn kind of
yeah,
thing.
do like a classic studio backlot area, add a ride in there or whatever you want to do, maybe some interactive theming elements.
Have a
Um,
sleazy movie executive and a casting couch.
yeah, why not? Welcome to Casting Couch, the experience. And
You're gonna be a
part,
star, honey.
part three of my demands, which may be the most controversial, but I think not that controversial once you think about it. Get rid of Hollywood Stunt Driver 2 and replace it with a cops and robbers themed car stunt show where the premise is that you are watching the filming of a cops and robbers car chase scene in a movie.
So basically the Police Academy stunt show in all but the name Police Academy.
Pretty much. Pretty much. Just make it a generic themed version of that. Or if they still have the rights to Police Academy, by all means go back to Police Academy. I just don't know how relevant it is anymore.
Yeah, I think it's past its
Um,
relevance.
so essentially make that whole alley from Studio Showcase all the way up to Hollywood Stunt Driver a movie backlot generic themed area.
Yeah.
With the exception of Scooby Doo, but that's fine. Because Scooby Doo's Scooby Doo.
Yeah.
Um yeah, that's my request. Please listen to
Makes
me.
sense.
And then after that, put a Wild West performance show in the area, that whole alleyway leading up to Wild West Falls to actually rejuvenate that area and not make it just a glorified entrance to that ride.
Yeah.
And then after
Because
that, I
the
have like
studio
15
showcase is
years.
where the Maverick show was, and that was Wild West themed.
Yeah. Well, after that, I have like 15 years worth of more plans for you, Movie World. So please come back to me after that. Um,
But just
but
sort this
those
shit out, and then we'll talk.
we'll sort those things out first. Next on the chopping block will be junior driving school after that.
Oh, tell me about it. What a
Well,
waste of space.
ugh, waste of space. What a shit ride. Anyway, I was saying today, I think it shows exactly what kind of position that I think each of the parks are in right now. SeaWorld, I can think of one thing that I would change. Like, there's one thing I want them to add.
Mhm.
Dreamworld, I'm like, I love you guys. You guys are fantastic. You're in a rebuilding phase, so here are a couple of ideas that you could use. Movie World, I'm like, why don't you sit down with me and we'll talk through a 20-year plan of how to fix this shit. It's sadly becoming the Six Flags of Australia.
It is. It really is.
And
I think that's almost by design at the moment.
yeah, it shouldn't be though. The park was inspired by Universal Studios and Hollywood Studios.
Yep.
It's meant to be a movie studio park. Why is it becoming Six Flags? It's not even a good Six Flags either. It's one of the shitty Six Flags that has one or two signature coasters and then a bunch of shit.
Fast and cheap.
Mm-hmm. It's like trying to think of an example of one of those. I'd almost say like Six Flags New England. We've got the RMC and the Intamin Mega Coaster, and then after that you've got just acres of mediocre stuff.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
it's just not great. Like after DC Rivals and Superman, it's just beginning to really reflect its mediocrity. Like I'm fine with Green Lantern and stuff, but what's it doing at that park?
Mm.
Yeah. Sad state of affairs at the moment, but that's okay. I'm going to be going back up to the Gold Coast on February 8th because I'm just so pleased that I decided to get a Dreamworld annual pass that I actually am going to accept the invitation to go up for the After Dark 2.0.
Okay.
Just going to head up there for a weekend. And then my next destination will be Threadbow.
I wish you best of luck, being that it is a warm season. You'll probably have a better experience than I did.
I hope so, although I haven't heard great reviews coming out of it lately. A lot of people saying the same things that you did.
Yeah.
So I'm not expecting to love it. But who knows?
It's just.
Maybe I'll be fortunate.
I think you'll have better luck going on a weekday.
I'm not sure that's
And
going to be
out
a
of school holiday
possibility.
period. Yeah.
I'm not sure it's going to be a possibility. I work Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not going to waste any of my leave time on Threadbow when I have Coaster Odyssey plans.
Fair call.
So it will be a weekend trip. Whether that comes back to bite me, we'll see.
Sure. But, best of luck.
Yes, thank you. Well, what an episode of Total Baloney.
We went from ragging on Oscar nominated movies and to ragging on Movie World and
Just rag on stuff. That's what we do.
yeah.
We're very negative people sometimes.
Oh,
Um,
we have opinions, and it's we've taken it upon ourselves to share them with the world, whether or not they were wanted or not.
Amelia Perez, that's the name of that movie.
Yes, I said that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I thought we were saying like we couldn't remember the name of it.
No, but
Oh.
back when we were talking about uh whether or not the movie is made for us, I was like, just like Amelia Perez, which was the movie I was talking about.
Ah, yeah. I wasn't listening. That's pretty
Just
normal for
waiting
me.
for my turn to speak.
uh, yeah. Well, that's the one. If you've seen it, let us know what you think of it in the comments. Is it as
Again,
bad
I will
as
need to see it in its entirety before I can make a proper judgment, but I'm
is
just
the rest
judging
of it?
off what I have seen.
Tell us in the comments if the rest of the movie is as bad as the sex change operation.
Sean.
Um,
Vaginoplasty, yes. Rhinoplasty, yes. Labioplasty, yes.
from penis
It's
to vagina.
no. Again, all for representation of underrepresented communities, but yeah, sometimes not all of it's good.
Just because movies do good things doesn't mean they're good movies.
Yeah.
Where can they find you, Kieran?
You can, if you're interested, You can find me on YouTube at Ejector Bear Time, or you can find me on Blue Sky at ejectorbeartime.bsky.social. How about you, Jake?
You can find me on YouTube at Maloney's Coasters. You can also find me on Instagram at Maloney's_coasters, on Blue Sky at maloney'scoasters.bsky.social, or on TikTok at Jake from Maloney.
Yeah. How are you finding having a very? Oh no, because America's allowed back on TikTok now. That's right.
Oh, don't get me started on that. We'll go for another hour.
Yeah.
That was a publicity stunt if ever
Oh,
I've seen one.
was it ever? But
Yeah,
yes, that's a whole other episode.
maybe that's next week.
All right. Until next time, you have been
This has
listening
been
a bunch of total baloney. What a bunch! What a bunch! What a bunch!